Okay, my fellow PCMR people, it's time for us to swallow a bitter goddamn pill. Because the cost of PC gaming is just getting out of hand, isn't it, Matt?
It's completely like anyone who doesn't, have something that's at least vaguely future-proof now, as of maybe 2 years ago, things are just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I remember Linus Tech Tips a while ago. They released a video that was like, just buy a GPU now. Mm-hmm. And Linus was saying, hey, I've worked in retail. I know what the supply chain is like. This is going to get worse. And I remember some people agreed, some people disagreed. God damn, was he right. Mm. So today we're going to be investigating what it actually means to get into PC gaming right now. Because it used to be fairly easy. And I remember the days when, say, the new consoles had came out back the previous gen, the PS4 and the likes of Linus Tech Tips, all the channels were saying, hey, here's a PC that is, comparable in performance, comparable in price, roughly the same amount of money, but it's a PC. You can do all these things on it.
Yep.
And we thought, well, it's great. The console games have a lower baseline. That means they can target even higher graphics. Maybe Crisis Warheads, gamer setting of graphics isn't enough. We need super gamer, whatever, right? We're getting really excited. I remember that. I was so excited that finally it would feel like we wouldn't be held back by the consoles, but the PC would truly be allowed to shine. It would reign king. And it has completely turned. Recently. So we have an example here, right? This is a mid-range, vaguely future-proof PC on PC Part Picker. Now, we only got 16 gigs of RAM. We skimped a wee bit. Because, man, even browsers these days, ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a case where 16 gig is fine for games. If you're doing anything a bit more than that, then you're going to be wanting 32. But, 16's fine. Yeah. And this is definitely designed to be... This is the bare minimum you can get away with for decently future-proof gaming.
And then we went for 1 terabyte of NVMe storage. Yep. Because 500 gigs, yeah, you can get it, but...
No.
like 2 games, great.
Yeah.
3060, because that is enough to average out at 1080-60, high quality for the foreseeable future. Obviously be able to push a wee bit higher with some games these days, but at least not the most high end, but it will do you a decent amount of time.
Yeah, it'll catch like anything that's optimized fairly well, it'll catch at like 1080-60 Ultra. If your game is a little bit more of a kind of a bastard to run, then you'll get 60 on like high and stuff like that, which means 1080p monitor, this is your 3060 is probably what you want to go for, unless you're a bit kind of unless you've got a higher resolution monitor, or you're playing something like, I guess, maybe a Battlefield or something. But yeah.
And Matt, is this better than a new console?
So no, it's not. That's the thing. It's not. It's for sake of handiness, I'll go by the user benchmark score, because it's the one number that sort of is vaguely sort of accurate across people. And we'll use Alex from Digital Foundry's idea for what a next gen console is. He said on Twitter, in response to being asked, that a 2070 Super is around the power that the consoles can put out. In terms of, a PC with a 2070 Super should be able to do largely the same job under the same circumstances. And that, by user benchmark, is about 20% or so more performant than the 3060 in a lot of metrics.
Ouch.
So you're a decent bit below what a new console can push. Depends on circumstance. Obviously, sometimes it can be better, sometimes worse. Depends on generation and architecture and stuff. But generally, not as good as a console, basically.
And then there's the superpower of a console, where let's just say this... there's something where this PC maybe could do particularly well. Well, on the console, you are going to have top quality engineers, profiling their game, doing all of that with a very specific hardware target in mind.
Yeah.
For the exact specs of a new PlayStation or Xbox, which is something you obviously can't get in PC. So generally, in order to have a bit of parity with the consoles, you do want a wee bit more horsepower, and you're not even getting that here. But you are paying $1,462 for that. But look at the price of the graphics card.
Yep.
I could hardly believe this. Look at this. An RTX 3060 is $747.
Mm-hmm.
Suffice it to say that the RRP for that card is significantly less.
Yep. the RRP for that card is $330.
Yeah, and this isn't scalpers. We are going through, look at this, 3060s, 3070s, all, cards in and around that.
Yeah.
Absurd pricing. I mean, hey, you want this 3070? You are dealing $1,800.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now thinking about the Razer Blade 14 that I purchased that has a has a 3070 in it. It's almost the bloody cost of that.
Yeah, that's the one thing that is kind of awkward at the minute, where technically slightly unfair by using the building a PC comparison.
Yeah.
But, obviously that's what used to be cheaper, because all of the Alienware stuff, the PC Specialist, all of the pre-builts used to come with a massive, massive, massive markup for the fact that they were pre-built, they were brand name, there's tech support, stuff like that. You were left on your own when you were building, but you would save a couple $100 generally. But that's not the case anymore, because you're buying a pre-built and you're basically paying $700 for the graphics card in that anyway. So you could get something roughly similar in a pre-built for roughly the same price.
Yeah.
And you have a couple of benefits, but generally it's still, that's the price of entry to PC gaming now.
Yeah, it's wild. Now, of course, it can always get worse. That's the great news. So, especially if you're an American, right?
Yep.
So, Best Buy have a paywall for graphics cards, because the only way that you can purchase a RRP graphics card is one of the NVIDIA Founders Edition cards.
Yep. NVIDIA don't scalp themselves. They'll just go, this is what we're the RRP. We can't not sell it at RRP, otherwise we're lying.
Yeah.
Effectively.
Now, NVIDIA have given the exclusive license for this in the United States anyway, which isn't where we live, but it is where most of our audience lives. Mm-hmm. They've given that to Best Buy. And what have Best Buy done? Well, they've locked it behind a $200 a year subscription called Total Tech that provides Geek Squad support, 24-month product protection, free delivery installation, VIP phone line. Oh boy. Access to member prices, which obviously is the kicker here, and a few other things that, aren't mega important. Basically, that's the thing. If you want to buy an RRP graphics card, you actually have to spend $200. Mm-hmm. So if you want that $300 card, it's going to cost you $500. Best Buy absolutely know what they're doing with this.
Yeah.
And especially, too, if that's a recurring membership, they're going to be counting on, especially if it's a year.
Yeah.
Because, if it's monthly, then you get the email saying, haha, we just took your money every month. If it's yearly, people are going to forget. So in some cases, that could end up being $700 for a $300 graphics card, and I'm sure that membership is not refundable.
Definitely not.
Or is at least going to be annoying. Yeah. Now, of course, this has been awesome for scalpers, because they just buy the graphics cards, and then away they go. And this actually means that they were paying less overhead per graphics card, because they could access RRP. And of course, they did the same for consoles as well, which I believe at a point consoles were also behind this very silly, big subscription.
Yeah, so if you're one person and you want to buy a $300 graphics card from Best Buy, you have to buy one for $500. But if you're a scalper and you want to buy 10, that doesn't cost you $5,000. That costs you $3,200, which means they've kind of tilted economies of scale in favor of scalpers behind this. I know they've went with some anti-scalping measures, and they did have a ticket system for their own stuff, but if you're buying a couple and scalping them, you can work away like.
And then next, we've got another thing that's been going on in the retail space, more for North America, and it's something that has increased the power level of one Steve Burke to, honestly, levels that are completely incomprehensible. He's going to get too powerful soon, and we'll have to stop him, but we won't be able to. But his first victim is Newegg. Newegg have messed up, and they've been caught out.
Bad.
So basically, Steve and Co at Gamers Nexus have been doing a big old journalism in this one. So the TLDR basically is that Newegg are alleged to have been running a damaged item scam over years, and that's been screwing over customers. Now, whether they've intended to run that or not, it does seem that ultimately is what they've been doing.
Yeah.
So Gamers Nexus ordered an open box MOBO, right? They ultimately didn't need this motherboard, so they just sent it back. Okay? They sent it back for a refund to get their $500 back, but Newegg actually claimed that the board was damaged. Now, Newegg then sent it back to Gamers Nexus, and then he found that it had RMA, which is, return to manufacturer, info from Gigabyte on it, and a damaged CPU socket. Mm-hmm. Now, some digging happened, and he basically found out that Newegg sent it to the manufacturer for repair, but they did not pay the cost and they got it back untouched. Right? So they sent it back. They didn't pay for the repair. The manufacturer sends back a board that they haven't touched, meaning that Newegg is now in possession of a motherboard that has not been fixed. So they knew it was damaged officially, but then they sold it as an open box item. They then claimed that Steve had damaged the item and refused to refund him, which is a bit preposterous. And then when this broke, a number of people basically just popped up saying that they had the exact same experience, receiving broken items, having no recourse, and ultimately being out of hundreds of dollars. Now, Newegg have since responded saying these are isolated incidents, that it's a bit of an accident or whatever. But ultimately, Steve & Co. are they basically just said, hey, we've booked tickets. We are coming to your front door. Hope you have a good response. It's the ball is on your court to respond to us.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. And that's why I say that Steve is becoming very powerful, because he's just going to go to the front door of this massive retailer and let them know what's up.
Yeah.
And if they don't respond properly to the Gamers Nexus team, it's going to look awful.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I saw on Twitter that yesterday the Gamers Nexus were asking for, here's an email address, send us any evidence or any stories you have of this happening to you, because we're going to present it to them. So I think it's really interesting that at least there's people, sort of fighting for that. But it's such a bad situation that Newegg, I don't know about it recently, but I always know that being here in the UK, we would go for overclockers or Scan or sometimes from Amazon. But it has always been the case. We looked across the pond and went, oh, you guys get to have Newegg. You always get your $20 rebates. You get cheaper stuff. You seem to have a really, really great service overall. And I remember that being the case when I was building PCs back, 10 years ago now. And just, that always being in my head. But it seems that something's sort of gone wrong. And now, obviously Best Buy are pulling that shit and just trying to scalp people out of their money. Just trying to force people into their, we have to make money out of this situation. And then now Newegg are, be it incompetence or on something unfortunate or some malicious intent, people are just been sort of scammed around the whole place. So between scalpers, trusted retailers now selling you broken stuff and not accepting that it was broken when you got it, it's just a generally really, really bad spot to be in.
And unfortunately, it's going to get worse.
Yep.
Right? So DigiTimes reported in January that TSMC, who basically, they make many of the semiconductors on Earth.
Yep.
They are such a key player. But they basically said that, they found out they were bumping their prices by 20%.
Yep.
So it's pretty likely that those cost increases at the foundry level are going to hit consumers probably with a RRP bump. I think we then probably have to add on to that as well inflation and what that's doing. And of course, we're also very aware that wages are not particularly keeping up with inflation anyway.
Yep.
And it seems that maybe true inflation is kind of higher than the numbers that are sort of being reported on these month-to-month sort of bases.
Definitely.
So this is all going to make PC gaming very hard to buy into.
Yeah.
And one of the things there is when you buy a console, you can almost subsidize the cost of the console by the future money you're going to be giving the manufacturer by partaking in their store.
Yeah, so that's something that I think is very, very important to get, because obviously your base instinct is, that costs $1,500, that PC, and you're saying it's performance-wise the same as the console. That literally doesn't add up. There is no way, unless someone is making $1,000 of profit off this, which you could argue scalpers, you could argue, it's supply issues, so demand is driving the prices up as opposed to quality of goods. But is that thing where, as unfortunate as it sounds, it is just the case where the equivalent in the PC is substantially more expensive, and a lot of it is down to that subsidization. Yeah. And that's, I think, the best way to frame it, is that Microsoft and Sony are, I don't think they're actually making a loss at the minute.
No, I don't believe so.
They were initially, I believe.
Yeah.
But they've put all of this hardware cost, all of this R&D cost, and they're willing to sell you this for $500 thereabouts for both consoles, because they know then they can make money off every game sale, everything you do on that, which is why it's $500 and not $1,500, because the manufacturers don't get any money after that. So they can't have that subsidized to get it into your hands. And that's the case, unless the subsidy comes from somewhere else. it's a case where the consoles are just going to be substantially cheaper for the same bang for your buck.
I mean, this
Yeah.
is the price of a graphics card.
Jesus Christ.
And so just the idea, you know, I could buy that really expensive PC
yeah.
that is a mid-range PC, or I could buy this and a console.
That's actually a really
And that
good
is
point,
a
yeah.
really messed up idea.
Yeah, because one of the things that used to be really strong about PCs was you could argue, oh, well, you know, you're maybe paying an extra $200 over a console or $300 over a console, but it's a PC. First of all, you have access to so many different games. You have access to an entire library of history. You've got all the emulation stuff going on. You also have a thing you can work on, or a thing you can do other forms of whatever else, or whatever hobbies, whatever work. You know, you can sit and pirate out movies, whatever, but you can't do that stuff on a console. But now when you can get a device that's as performant as that PC, and also a console as well, as performant as that PC, excluding gaming, and then a console for all your gaming needs, then it's just two devices for the price of one.
Yeah, I mean, being real to the M1 in this, for day-to-day tasks and
Yeah.
like snappiness, and I think you found the same as well.
Yep.
Like I have a 5950 HX on my Razer Blade, which is like double the price of this, literally.
Yeah.
And this feels so much faster,
Yep.
right? So
Focus.
all of these things mean that the traditional way that I used to think about gaming, which was build a big hulking rig and be very satisfied with my rig, sit there watching videos of custom loops thinking, oh man, I really want to do one of those.
Yeah.
That has, I mean, okay, the custom loop stuff has always been pretty inaccessible
Yes.
to the layperson, but like a really cool hobbyist project. But like now just the basic cost of the parts is making this more and more and more inaccessible in a general time where people don't have as much disposable income.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably pretty good news if you're running a cloud platform. Not that will be particularly relevant to any of us.
Yes.
But I think for a lot of people who are like, you know, way more on the casual end, aren't really watching gaming videos on YouTube, I mean, just the cost of hardware is awful these days. So
Yep.
this presents, to wrap this up, a major threat to the long-term health of PC gaming. And it also is something the developers are going to need to think about. Because when the new Battlefield game comes out and it struggles to run on a 3070 on my Razer Blade, what does that mean for everybody who is still, I don't know, the 10 series or the 9 series? Because, you know, it's like from that point onward, we had the crypto bump.
Yeah.
You know, we've had so many things messing up with the supply of GPUs. And it's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
So what happens for like the next Assassin's Creed game? I remember Assassin's Creed Origins came out and people were like, oh wow, this game looks beautiful, but whew, good luck running it. You need a good graphics card for the day. Now a good graphics card for the day costs as much as many of us will have built on a mid to high end PC in years gone by.
Yeah, that's the thing
And that's messed up.
Yeah, I remember building what I think was roughly the equivalent to that machine when I was maybe, you know, not quite as good, maybe 10-20% down performance. I remember building something like that when I was 17, so about 11 years ago, and it was like 700 quid, 600-700 quid or something, and that was fairly expensive, but it was like that was my entry point into the market as a relative budget PC gamer, and that's what kicked it all off for me. That's what turned me into a PC gamer, as opposed to sticking with consoles. And that's a thing where that entire range of experience is just going to be gone, because you cannot get a $500, $600, $700 PC. I mean, you could arguably just grab one of the integrated graphics things, but the chance of that running anything decent is just scuffed. It's that case where I think if you try to trend like a graph of graphics cards improvements and GPU power improvement over time or something like that, you'll find that everyone's shooting up the graph. The developers shooting up the graph, the manufacturers are firing up there, but all the consumers are left behind because they're being priced out of the market. Not in a dissimilar way to people being priced out of housing markets and entrepreneurial markets. It's just a case of, sorry, this is too expensive for you to get into now. Sorry about that. You'll have to get the solution that's subsidized, which is either the consoles, the housing market equivalent's roughly renting instead of buying, but consoles, Microsoft will pay for you to have that, so they can take percentages off everything else. Same with Sony.
Yeah.
And the developer part is really annoying me, because I imagine there are devs thinking, man, we really need to make our game scalable, like God of War running effectively enough on integrated graphics. There's going to be developers going, I want to do this, and the orders from the top are going to be, nope, our game has to look as good as Horizon Forbidden West. And you're like, well, we can't do that, and also if players play it, you're like, too bad. So unfortunate.
Yeah, it's rough. So like that's the situation. I'm glad I have a PS5. You're glad you have a PS5.
For sure.
We have gaming rigs that have been from the past. Mm-hmm. The worry just is, where are the new PC gamers going to come from? Because now mobile is more accessible, handheld via Switch is more accessible, consoles are more accessible, and there's just some genres that I know I particularly love, like the Warhammer games, StarCraft, stuff like that. They really live in PC. And in fairness, a lot of those, say StarCraft, will run in just about anything.
Yeah.
But there's just something about PC gaming, that I've always loved. And the idea that these market issues are going to, I think, quite massively limit the intake of new PC gamers just does make me a wee bit sad for the future. So hopefully we get out of this. Hopefully TSMC are able to scale up their capacity, same for the other foundries, and we get this situation to be reasonable again. So let us know how this has impacted you and your friends, because I'm fairly sure it has. Even in our team, one of our guys, he's had his GPU die. Yeah. He was looking at the UK market for GPUs. I mean, I think we have a spare 980 or 970 we can send him, which will be helpful for him, but it's not going to solve the issue.
He was lucky enough that he was still under warranty. So, so the manufacturer will eat the price for that failure and get him a replacement. But it's the thing where if your card dies and you're out of warranty, you better have, if you're looking for something reasonable, you better have $400 or $500 ready to go at any time. Or if you're looking for something performant, $800.
Yikes.
And like that, $700 for a 3060. In what universe does that make sense? Like,
yeah, it's ridiculous. So, let us know how it's impacted you, and we'll see you in the next time.